All right, let's get one thing straight. When we talk about addiction, we're not just referring to the heavy stuff, alcohol, cocaine, whatever gets passed around at the underground parties you're definitely not invited to. Nope, I'm talking about the everyday kind, the low-key, soul-sapping, socially acceptable variety. YouTube binges, TikTok rabbit holes, 14-hour gaming sessions, or endlessly scrolling Reddit while convincing yourself that it's research. We're living in a world where being mentally overstimulated is basically the default setting. Most people can't even eat a real meal anymore without pulling up a video. God forbid we sit with our thoughts for more than 10 seconds. That's how you end up realizing you forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer back in 2019. But seriously, this constant need to be stimulated is turning us into addicts. Maybe not in the conventional sense, but the symptoms are quite similar. The bad news, these habits are designed to hijack your brains. The good news is you can break free. And no, it does not require a silent retreat in the Himalayas or deleting your phone with holy water. So let's walk through exactly how to escape the cycle and how to finally live the life you're trying to build. So to understand how to get out, you need to understand what exactly that you're trapped into. Addiction at its core is a hijacking of your brain's reward system. When you do something enjoyable, eating ice cream, playing games, scrolling Instagram reels that are all somehow about cats and stock tips, your brain releases dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical. It's like your brain handing you a gold star and saying, "Great job, champ, let's do that again." But here's the catch. The more often you chase these instant highs, the more your brain adjusts. It becomes harder to feel satisfied by the slow, boring things like reading, walking, or having a conversation without checking your notifications every 20 seconds. Worse, after a dopamine spike, your brain actually dips below its baseline level. This creates that dreaded crash, tiredness, apathy, and the soul-deep desire to just lay in bed and rot. It's not laziness, it's actually withdrawal. And to escape that unpleasant crash, you reach for another hit. Just one more scroll, one more episode, one more click. Repeat that enough times, and congratulations, you're now stuck on the emotional roller coaster no one wants to ride, but everyone is on. So, step one, you have to admit you're addicted to something. Before we talk about solutions, we need to address that uncomfortable truth. Most people don't quit because they haven't accepted they have a problem. You hear stuff like, "I only play video games to unwind," or "I just scroll TikTok for fun." And hey, there's nothing wrong with that in moderation, but let's be honest. If you're spending 8 hours a day shouting at teammates you've never met, or you panic when your phone battery hits 5%, or your morning routine includes opening 5 apps before you even brush your teeth, that's not relaxing. That's dependency dressed up in casual clothes. And the problem isn't the activity itself. Video games aren't evil. YouTube isn't a crime. Even TikTok has its moments. The problem is when these things start controlling you instead of the other way around. So step two, don't just quit cold turkey. You have to replace this habit. And this is where most people fail. They think that quitting means cutting the cord and never looking back. "I'm never touching this again," they say, constantly and confidently deleting their game launcher only to re-download it 36 hours later like a junkie trying to reinstall self-worth. The reality is, you can't just yank out an addiction like a weed and expect the soil to stay clean. You have to replace it with something better, or at least something healthier. So when I decided to quit video games when I was a teenager, which had become less of a fun hobby and more of a full-time job with no benefits, I didn't just sit around twiddling my thumbs. I started going to the gym. At first, it was mostly just something to do so I wouldn't spiral back into a 12-hour Call of Duty session. But eventually, working out started to feel good. I began getting my dopamine from that instead, from the progress, the structure, and seeing visible changes. And the key here is not stop doing X and start doing Y, something that gives you slow and steady dopamine drip, like lifting weights, reading, cooking, drawing, talking to humans, in person even. Over time, your brain starts rewiring. That old destructive habit fades, not because you forced it to disappear, but because you crowded it out with something better. Step number three, find something to obsess over. Even healthy replacements might not be enough if you still have spare time to fill, and spare bandwidth for temptation. And that's where obsession comes in. After I'd replaced gaming with fitness, I still found little pockets of time in my day I could easily spend spiraling back into bad habits. Then I started creating content, an Instagram page, and suddenly I didn't have time to game anymore. I was too busy scripting, editing, planning, failing, retrying, and trying again. When you have a mission, something you care about and want to build, you don't need to resist your old habits. You just stop having space for them. If you've never felt obsessed with something productive, now is the time to experiment. Try everything until something sticks. Starting a business, building a good physique, learning a language, creating content, cooking, writing a book, or learning how to make sourdough bread. Once you're genuinely curious and excited about something new, it naturally starts to push the old cravings out of your mental spotlight. Now for step 4, you have to hack the urge without fighting it. This one is subtle but powerful. When you feel the cravings rise, whether it's gaming, porn, junk food, whatever, don't fight it head on. Don't be like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. That never works. It's like saying, don't think of a pink elephant. Boom, you just thought of a whole elephant circus. Instead, you have to redirect. Not forcefully, casually. Think of something that makes you smile or feel grounded. A memory, a dream, a moment you're proud of. When the urge comes up, don't resist it. Just gently turn your focus somewhere else. Cravings are kind of like annoying background noise, like spam emails coming into your brain. You don't have to yell over them, you just have to turn up the volume on something better or just delete them and ignore them entirely. Step 5, fix the mental health that fuels the addiction. And here's the dark irony. A lot of our addictions are really just us trying to cope with how bad we feel. When you feel miserable, overstimulated, or lost, your brain searches for relief. And it usually picks whatever's worked before, which is usually scrolling, eating, gaming, watching the stuff that shall not be named. So rather than just cutting off the addiction, fix what's underneath. Boost your mental health. For real. And this isn't a go touch grass meme, but in a practical, sustainable way. Meditate. Yes, even if your brain won't shut up at first. Go outside for real sunlight. Exercise. Be kind to people. Practice gratitude for small stuff. I know it's cliche. And eat food that didn't come out of a foil wrapper. Mental health isn't a misery. It's a collection of simple, boring habits that, when stacked, make life feel lighter. And when you feel good, you don't need constant stimulation to distract you from how bad you feel. It's kind of funny how that works. Now for step 6, upgrade your identity. At some point, you have to stop trying to change your behavior and instead change how you see yourself. If you believe you're just a guy who's bad with discipline or can't quit gaming or has always had a porn problem, you will continue to act in line with that identity. But if you start thinking for yourself as someone who's focused, purposeful, and improving, even if it's not fully true yet, your actions start to align with that. When I started dating my wife, I suddenly found it effortless to avoid a lot of bad habits. I wasn't even trying. I just couldn't imagine her wanting to be with some dude who was still glued to a screen for 12 hours a day. I had to become someone else. And it turns out the fastest way to drop an addiction is to stop seeing yourself as the kind of person who needs it. So ask yourself, who is the version of you that's already free? What would they do differently today? And step 7, remember, you will relapse, but that doesn't mean that you failed. And again, let me get this out of the way. You'll have a bad day. You'll spiral. You will fall back into an old habit. And when that happens, it'll feel like you've lost all your progress. But you haven't. Relapse really isn't failure. It's data. Maybe you need a better system. Maybe you were tired or hungry or lonely. Maybe you just needed to rest. When it happens, don't beat yourself up. That only makes you more likely to escape into the very habits you're trying to break. Instead, acknowledge the slip, recalibrate, and keep going. Progress is not a straight line. It's a zigzagging loop. But if the loop is trending upward over time, you're winning. So again, this isn't about perfection. This is about momentum. I went from wasting most of my life in front of a screen, overstimulated, underslept, and questioning everything, to someone who actually enjoys being awake and looks forward to it. But it didn't happen overnight. And it didn't suddenly happen because I became disciplined. It happened because I made space, replaced habits, found purpose, and most importantly, changed how I saw myself. And again, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep moving forward. One better choice at a time. Now go touch some grass.